Hey everyone, Mitch coming in with Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show. Yet another day of early spoiler season, or early in the day spoiler season. It's like the fourth day of spoiler season. And this commander that we saw early in the morning, I think has some sneaky potential, and some players might sleep on it, and you should not. Let's jump into it. Inti, Seneschal of the Sun. There we go. I'm really good with names. Have you known that? A 2/2 human knight for 1 and a red. Of course, a legendary creature, so it can be a commander. Whenever you attack, you may discard a card. When you do, play +1 counter target attacking creature, gains trample until I've turned. Boring. Sorry, that part is kind of boring. Just, and that, I think, sometimes commanders like this, where they have like that first, line of text, kind of just throws players off, and they're like, I don't like that. That's just not that good. It's not bad. It's not bad to have that. Hey, yeah, your creature gets a counter on it and it gains trample. Nice. Probably better in like limited formats, but nice. Regardless, whenever you discard one or more cards, exile the top card of your library, you may play it until your next end step. So, yeah, that has a ton of potential. This part is why we care about this commander. Yeah, it pairs well with that first part, but it's still like, oh, cool. I get Impulse Draw 1 when I attack. Yay! Okay. Again, that first part, don't ignore it, but don't build around it that much. The part that you really want to build around and use and abuse is that second part, because while Impulse Draw is not straight up card advantage, it is temporary card advantage. And again, this is the best kind of Impulse Draw. This is the kind of Impulse Draw that we need. Again, you may play it until your next end step. So you've got a full turn cycle to actually play it, which is fantastic. And again, getting temporary card advantage, yeah, you'd rather just get straight up card draw, but this can be absolutely absurd because, well, there are certain cards out there that allow you to discard cards for free or very cheaply. And so essentially you can say, yeah, okay, you know what? I don't want this card. I'll get rid of it and all of a sudden replace it and be able to play the card that I just not drew, but gained access to essentially until the end of my next turn. So being able to do that can be fantastic and just give you an absurd amount of, potential card advantage, temporary card advantage throughout the game. Whereas, other players won't have access to just being able to discard your whole hand. I should say discard your whole hand one at a time, replace it, and then utilize it. Because again, keep in mind, it does say whenever you discard one or more cards. So keep that in mind. Only exile the top card of your library. So if you're discarding, your entire hand at once, like with a wheel effect, and yeah, those are so good in this, deck, and I'll talk about why, then you know what? You still only get one card off the top of your library. So if you're discarding one card or discarding 7, the answer is 1. But if you discard one card at a time with a 7-card hand, you just impulse drew 7 for free with this low to the ground commander. So again, this commander I think has a ton of potential. The amount of potential card advantage, temporary card advantage, yes, you have is absurd. And yeah, there's some really crazy things you can do with it. So with all that, let's talk about the budget buys and the pricier picks, cards that are less than $1, cards that are more than $1 you should be considering with this amazing commander. And again, I think one that's going to be underrated because players are just going to read that first line and be like, boring, skip. But they should not. And yeah, if you're interested in this commander and these cards, make sure you check out that card list link in the description below. With all that said, let's jump into it. So let's start things off with the budget buys, and the first one that I want to mention is an incredible one and janky, very, very janky, but amazing with this commander, Patchwork Gnomes. I love when commanders make janky, terrible cards into amazing cards. A 2/1 artifact creature gnome for 3 mana that very simply says, discard a card, regenerate it. Now, normally you wouldn't be like, cool, I get a 2/1 that can regenerate, whoop-de-doo. But what you care about essentially is, yeah, this is a free discard outlet for you, which is incredible again with this commander because all of a sudden you can say, oh, I got this card that's useless in my hand. I don't like it. Cool. Discard it. And all of a sudden, Impulse Draw 1. You can replace bad cards in your hand immediately with this with a temporary card advantage, but still it's better than the card that you already had. And of course, there are benefits that we'll talk about here in a bit of actually discarding cards. You can gain value out of that too. Moving on, let's talk about Seismic Assault. I love this card. Discard a land card. It's going to deal 2 damage to any target. Now, it has a super restrictive casting cost, but that doesn't matter. You're in mono red, right? You can cast that. Discard a land, deal 2 damage to any target. This is incredible. This is just, hey, yeah, shock whatever you want, essentially, and be able to just replace all the lands in your hand, which are dead cards later in the game typically, with, well, damage your opponent's faces, to their creatures, whatever, and then also Impulse Draw. This is free Impulse Draw in combination with your commander. Moving on, one that's slightly not as free, but, helps you in a different way. Tectonic Reformation, an incredible card, enchantment for 2 mana. Each land card in your hand is cycling for a red. You could also cycle this way if you want. So again, if you want to replace this, you can. And then also again, with those lands having cycling for a single red mana, you pay that red, you get rid of that dead land in your hand. All of a sudden, that turns basically into 2 cards. It turns into, well, a card drawn with the cycling, and also since you're discarding it, it turns into Impulse Draw 1 with your commander. So yeah, you did pay 1 mana, but you paid it to essentially cantrip and also gain an extra temporary card with Impulse Draw. Pretty incredible. Next up, let's talk about wheels, because again, I did mention wheels and how you need to be kind of wary with how you utilize them. Magus the Wheel is a great one though. Pay 1 red, tap, sacrifice. Each player discards their hand, then draw a 7. So again, everyone discards, everyone goes up to 7. Now the thing is, yeah, you if you utilize this when you got 7 cards in your hand, you're only impulse drawing 1 with your commander. But let's just say you have no hand. Let's say again, you've got that Patchwork Gnomes in play or whatnot. You discard down to nothing. You impulse draw a ton. You have no hand. You wheel with this. You discard nothing with it. And all of a sudden you draw 7. So you've got 7 new cards in your hand. You've got whatever cards that you have in exile that are impulse drawn that you can utilize. You've got a massive amount of cards that you have access to utilize. Yeah, you can do some pretty crazy things with this. And yeah, if you want to gain access to even more cards, discard the cards you just drew to impulse draw even further if the cards in your hand are not good. So yeah, make sure you're considering that. Also, hey, take advantage of discarding with something like Change of Fortune. Discard your hand, then draw a card for each card you've discarded this turn. So again, yeah, don't, have any cards in your hand. Typically with this, that's fine. Discard all those cards down again with that Patchwork Gnomes or whatever. Impulse draw a ton, and all of a sudden, maybe wheel, do other things as well. Get in more cards. Draw a ton of cards with this and just access all those again. There again, utilizing wheels, utilizing discard effects, you can draw a ton with something like this to replace things. Even one that you actually discarded, yeah, like a Runehorn Hellkite. This can be fantastic. A great card to just discard, get in your graveyard, because in your graveyard it can be 5 and a red, exile from your graveyard, and everyone's going to wheel. So again, obviously you're in red, you've got some great wheel effects. Make sure you're using them effectively. And again, keep in mind, don't fall into the trap of like, oh yeah, I get to just discard my hand and then impulse draw all those. No, it is 1 or more, so you're only doing 1 impulse draw. Be careful with that. But yeah, you have ways to mitigate your hand, not mitigate your hand, to manage your hand, I should say, and be able to ensure that you can make the most of it. Speaking of which, now this kind of works against Runehorn, but still, there's different ways to take advantage of the cards that you're discarding. Bag of Holding. When you discard a card, exile a card from your graveyard. You can also pay 2 to tap and loot. Lovely. But also, more importantly, pay 4 to tap and sacrifice this. And all those cards that are exiled with Bag of Holding go back into your hand. So essentially, you have, again, just picture the Patchwork Gnomes. You discard cards in your hand. Cool. You impulse draw. Now you have all those cards you have access to. You sacrifice this. You get all those cards throughout the game that you discarded back in your hand. And all of a sudden, my goodness, the amount of card advantage, and again, temporary card advantage you have, is absurd. Enough to make those blue players jealous. And then we also have Containment Construct, another one that can really help you utilize those discard cards. Whenever you discard a card, you may exile a card from your graveyard. If you do, you may play that card this turn. It's kind of like impulse drawing a card that you discarded in a way, or temporary. It's like the worst impulse draw where it's like you get access to it this turn. So again, discard a card that you're planning on utilizing anyways. Again, it does say play, not cast. So you can play lands from that. And then also impulse draw off of it, and then still utilize those cards. So yeah, this card is pretty absurd when it comes to the amount of value. And then, yeah, how about Glenhorn Buccaneer? Again, another way to take advantage of discarding cards. You have a lot of them in red. Whenever you discard a card, it's going to deal 1 damage each opponent. Cool. All of a sudden, you are pinging your opponents for a ton throughout the game with this. This can be so devastating. On top of that, pay 1 red, discard a card, draw a card, only if it's attacking. So again, yet another way to say, hey, let's get some extra card advantage, as well, again, as some temporary card advantage too. Speaking of advantages, though, finally, let's talk about Araxa, Empress of Mars. Battle Cry is nice, but also more importantly, whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, create a 2/2 red alien warrior creature token. Again, Take advantage of ways to take advantage of cards in exile and cast them from exile. You're casting them from outside your hand, so you know what? You can make an army in absolutely no time with this. In combination with your commander, in combination with cards allow you to discard, you can do some pretty incredible things. But also onto the pricier picks again, cards that are more than $1. But yeah, first up we've got Bergi, God of Storytelling. More so maybe the backside. We'll talk about the front side first though. Whenever you cast a spell, add red until end of turn. You don't lose this mana steps in phase end. Don't worry about the boasting. Essentially, you can utilize this as a great, what was I going to say? Essentially, ritual-ish effect, essentially. Kind of like, okay, every time I cast it, I get some mana back. It's like a mana reduction in a way, but an advantage. More likely though, the backside is what we're really going to utilize. So the front side is great too. Harnfell, Horn of Bounty. Really cool art on this. Discard a card, exile the top 2 cards of your library, and play those cards this turn. So this is kind of the worst kind of impulse draw, essentially, but you're getting twice as much. Again, you get temporary advantage to it just this turn, not until the end of your next turn, like our commander. That being said, by discarding 1 card with this, if your commander is in play, you basically bad impulse draw 2, 1 good impulse draw on top of that, so 3 total impulse draw. Yeah, 2 of those you kind of got to use right away, 1 you don't, but still an absurd amount of card advantage. Again, for free, it's temporary, but again, you just discard a single card in your hand. That turns into potentially 3 cards for you. Absolutely crazy. Moving on, speaking of advantages though, Surly Badger Soar. Whenever you discard a creature card, you get a counter on this. Cool. Whenever you discard a land card, you get a treasure token. That is absurd. Whenever you discard a non-creature non-land card, it's going to 5/1 target creature you don't control, so this can get bigger throughout the game. This can take out a lot of creatures throughout the game, and also, again, most importantly, hey, if you're discarding lands, you get free mana, so this can make turns just go absolutely absurd. Again, you're discarding cards for extra, temporary card advantage with that impulse draw, and then also you're getting extra mana to utilize those cards in exile too. Speaking of the exile, Keeper of Secrets, oh my goodness. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, it's going to deal damage equal to that spell's mana value to target opponent. There's a reason why this thing's like nearly $18. It's a very good card with commanders that care about exiling an impulse draw, and yeah, cast them from outside your hand. You're like, okay, cool, bing, 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 bing. Yeah, taking your opponents out in absolutely no time. This thing is crazy. Speaking of which, Flaming Tyrannosaurus. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere in your hand, it's going to deal 3 damage to any target, so Lightning Bolt. You also get a counter on this, and when it dies, deals damage equal to its power to each opponent. So yeah, you're going to be casting, again, a ton of things from exile. You're going to be Lightning Bolting so many things. Again, any target, including your opponent's faces. Speaking of your opponent's faces, when this is taken out, yeah, you get to just demolish all your opponents with that. When it comes to wheels as well, of course, there are some more expensive wheels you can utilize. Reforge the Soul, a great one. Each player discards all the cards in their hand and draw 7 cards. If you happen to draw this, your first card, in the turn, miracle, cool, for 1 and a red. Good for you. Great wheel. Speaking of great wheels, if you've got apparently $266, good for you. If you want to spend that on Wheel of Fortune. Very old, very good wheel. Basically, again, everyone for 3 mana, you say everyone's going to discard your hand, draw 7. So a very, very effective wheel, of course. And then also Currency Converter. This one is an interesting card. Whenever you discard a card, you may exile a card from your graveyard, pay 2 tap, draw and discard, so loot. Most importantly, though, tap, put a card exiled with it into your graveyard. If it's a land card, you get a treasure token. If it's a non-land card, you get a 2/2 Black Rogue creature token. So basically, hey, again, taking advantage of those cards that are getting discarded, utilizing them in different ways. Again, just exiling them, stashing them over there, and saying, yeah, I can make extra treasures, I can make extra creatures, I can do a lot of crazy things with this. But now this episode is coming to a close, yeah, I urge you once again, please do not sleep on this commander. Again, this is one of those types of commanders that, like, the first line of text kind of hurts the commander in a way. It doesn't hurt the commander at all, obviously. If you are attacking, cool, you'll take that extra free impulse draw, you'll take that counter, you'll take that trample. But what matters with this, again, is that second part. And some players don't get past that first part. They're just like, it's not good because of that, so therefore the rest isn't good. If it didn't have that text, it would still be incredible because, again, the potential temporary card advantage this can generate for you is incredible. And again, red is set up in such a good way to really take advantage of that. Again, those free discard outlets like a Seismic Assault, wheel effects to essentially just replace your hand again without the downside of being like, yeah, I have to get rid of my hand. Doesn't matter. You didn't have a hand to start with, so just draw 7. And your opponents are going to be like, oh, darn, my hand's gone. Oh, thanks for the cards, but you ruined my plans. Yeah, wheels can actually ruin players' plans, but your plans are already set up. Again, the cards that you discard are going to be in exile. You can stick with your plan and also gain a new plan as well on top of that with the new cards that you're drawing too. So you can do some pretty incredible things with this one. In the comments below, let me know your thoughts are on it. If you are interested in this commander, again, make sure to check out that card list link in the description below. Make sure to stay tuned to this channel for more exciting quick takes and spoilers. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one.
This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.